Hey Trace, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today.
Yeah, of course.
I know we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but you were telling me that you recently have finished out your collegiate wrestling career, which kudos to you, and you're nearing graduating. So I just kind of want to talk to you about how those are some pretty big life changes, and wondering about all the adjustments you've made as you've made it near the end.
Yeah, no, it's been a big change for sure. The last 4 years I've been doing the same thing. Every year when I graduate, or not graduate, but get done in the spring and then come back in the fall, I know what I'm doing. Now this year being done, it's kind of a mystery. It's the first time in 4 years I don't know what I'm doing going forward. There's been a lot of just day-to-day changes too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't work out as much. I don't see a lot of my friends as much. And obviously I'm super busy with graduation requirements and trying to finish out all my classes and jobs next year. I'm going to go in the MAT program, so a lot of stuff going on, a lot of adjustments I've had to make. So
yeah, well, you mentioned that you don't work out as much and there's not as much structure, so those are some pretty big adjustments to your everyday life. What impact has not being, I guess, another way to put it, as active, physically active, has that made on your life?
yeah, it's been different. Negative's a hard word, but I have always been a physically active person, being outside. I grew up in the rodeo life. Three-sport athlete in high school, and then you go to college and it's a different animal. You're working out 7 days a week all the time, 9-10 months of the year, and then obviously through the summer too. So kind of going from that all gas no brakes for 4 years and turning into, okay, you're on your own. You don't have to do all that hard stuff anymore if you don't want to. Even though I know in my mind that I probably should still be doing something, I guess it's kind of hard to find the motivation to do a lot of that stuff anymore, just because I'm done. I finished it. So even though I probably should keep doing it, so yeah.
Well, being a collegiate athlete is a huge accomplishment in itself, and this has been most of your life, as you've said, however many years it's been, and so I can only imagine the impact that it's had on your day-to-day life, just going from all, as you said, all gas no brakes, to pretty much not a whole lot except for schoolwork. What kind of an impact in the future do you see this having on your life, not being as active?
Yeah, it could certainly have some negative consequences if taken too far. It's kind of a running joke alongside the wrestling community. You see a lot of these wrestling coaches, and you look at wrestlers, and most of them are really small, lean guys. And you see all these coaches, and they're all short and fat. And so whether that's a cutting weight thing, or wrestlers overeat afterwards, it's just kind of a eating disorder we develop, or we just worked out so hard for so long, we're done with it. It certainly can have some negative consequences, and I want to be a wrestling coach. I don't want to be one of those short fat wrestling coaches. I want to be able to wrestle with my kids every day and be able to work with them hands-on. I want to be able to raise my own children and be physically active with them like my dad was. And so there definitely could be a lot of negative consequences if I can't find a way to stay active as much as I should.
So as you just mentioned, your dad was super active with you growing up, and you also don't want to have, I guess, some of the negative consequences, as you put it, as some other wrestling coaches have developed from, now you don't have to cut weight anymore, and now you're not exercising as much as the sport demands, which is totally understandable. How do you think that it could, how do you think that not being active in the future or like how do you see your activity level in the future being? Like, what motivates you to want to be active for the future, which you kind of touched on.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, I mean, in college, your main motivation, or a college athlete, your main motivation is you want to win, right? You want to, you got to be in shape, you got to be the strongest if you want to compete, all those things. And for several years, you know, like my freshman and sophomore year, especially when I first got into it, I got really into that. I power lifted for a few years, or for a couple of years. I took it super seriously, tried to get as strong as I could. And then I had injuries start piling up, and then towards the end of my career, it was more about staying healthy and preventing injury. And so I think that's a big thing that motivates me too, or that has motivated me, is, you know, I want to stay healthy. I don't have to be the strongest guy, I don't have to be the fastest, but I want to be physically fit. I want to be a healthy individual. I want to live a long life. And, you know, kind of like I touched on, I'll be able to wrestle with my wrestlers, play with my kids, that sort of stuff. So, you know, you're really just striving to still, even though I'm not a full-time college athlete anymore, still be a healthy individual is probably one of my biggest motivations for wanting to stay in shape, I should say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, those are some really great motivators to push you to be better, as one might say. Would you view, you touched on that you've had some injuries, so that could be perceived as a barrier to your activity level. Have you noticed that, or anything else stopping you from being as active as you want to be currently?
Yeah, I mean, you know, kind of like I mentioned, I did have a bunch of injuries, and so whether that's subconscious or conscious, you know, it's one, it's a mental thing, and then two, you know, I'm not young anymore. I don't, you know, I can't do a bunch of stuff and then feel great the next day, especially with my injuries. They make that worse. So it definitely makes it so it's like, oh, you know, like I play disc golf a lot, and like I take it pretty seriously. I play in tournaments and stuff, and a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm gonna lift Thursday, but I have a disc golf tournament Friday, and so then I choose not to lift Thursday because I don't want to be sore for my disc golf tournament Friday. And there's a lot of things like that really kind of, you know, I almost find reasons not to go work out because I don't want to be hurting or sore for other things I have going. So yeah, no, that definitely plays a big part. That, and just being so busy, you know, with all of the things I have going, graduating, trying to find a job, MAT program. You know, it's like, oh, I have to work out. Nah, it's okay. I need to do this homework assignment instead. And so I end up pushing it to the side, which maybe I shouldn't do. But that's just, yeah, it's definitely been a barrier for me, those two things, the injuries and then just too busy.
Well, it sounds like you are managing to be active, though, at least a little bit, especially if you're playing disc golf. We say that, you know, don't you have to walk the whole course with that?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely still, I'm still physically active, I should say. Like, I'm still getting out and doing things here and there. I just, for where I want to be, and in, you know, and maybe it's just a wrestler thing where I don't have to be the strongest, I don't have to be the fastest, but I still want to be a strong, very healthy, in shape individual. And I play disc golf with a lot of guys that are not that, you know. So disc golf alone, or hiking alone, or, you know, those things, they're great and they're great for me, but to really be where I want to be, I need to be in the gym 3-4 days a week. I need to be doing those lifts, and I think a lot of that will help with my injuries and rehab and all that stuff. You know, I have all that stuff going, and so yeah, getting outside's great, but for where I want to be, I really need to be on a set schedule.
So, sounds to me like you have higher expectations in where you're at than just maintaining, as some people call it, like a lifetime fitness activity. You want to be in the weight room, you want to be out running and doing more higher impact activities then?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So you are being active with disc golf and stuff. Do you think that there is potentially a plan or a minor step in the right direction that you think you could implement with, you know, you're so busy right now, but do you have, I know you mentioned earlier in our conversation, like you want to get to the point where you're going to work out 3 days a week. Are you planning to maybe start small and do, okay, I'm going to play disc golf on Thursday, So maybe on Tuesday I am lifting that day or something, just one extra day a week. And then, you know, when you're less busy, building up to 2 and then building up to 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. The hardest, one of the hardest part, and I should have mentioned this in the barriers too, is getting started. You know, even though my injuries hold me back and stuff, a big part too is when you first start lifting, especially if you start lifting all the time, you're gonna be sore for a couple weeks. And I think that's kind of deterred me, is like I will lift for a day or two, maybe even I'll get a weekend where I have 3 days and it's like, oh, that's great. But then the next week I'm busy the whole time and I put it off, and then now the week after that it's like, okay, well, I don't want to lift because I'm gonna be really sore again. So yeah, I really just need to get on a set schedule where I'm getting myself up at 8 a.m. and I'm going 3 days a week. I think that's been a huge problem for me, is like wrestling, I had to be up at 4:30 every time I wanted to lift. And so now I don't want to get up early, one, at all, and two, you know, to lift especially. So I've almost overcompensated there. I think I would benefit a lot if I could just, I mean, it would be easy to do, just get myself out of bed at 8 a.m. and go lift and just kind of start my day with that every day. Get more on a structure, kind of like I was, you know, not to the level or the severity that I was at college wrestling, but just something similar I think would help a lot and wouldn't be too hard to implement.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that's a really great plan to get you started. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today and sharing your time with me and the class. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad I could help and share some stuff about myself. So, yeah.
Well,